You owe me this for dealing with Mom all these years. That was the text my brother sent me right before he wiped out my entire bank account. I looked down at my phone and saw the balance. $0. $185,000, transferred out in seconds. That wasn't just savings. That was the settlement money for my daughter Rebecca's leg surgery. It was the only thing standing between her and a lifetime of pain. And the transaction log made it crystal clear who did it. Travis's iPhone. My brother didn't just steal from me. He stole from a crippled 10-year-old because he felt entitled to a payday. I stared at the screen and for the first time in my life I didn't feel like the nice, helpful sister. I felt like a forensic auditor who just found her next target. Before I tell you how my daughter became the most dangerous person in this family, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I want to see who's on our side. You are probably asking the same question the fraud department asked me later. Why did a forensic auditor, someone who hunts financial criminals for a living, give her unemployed brother access to her bank account? Sounds stupid when you say it out loud. But financial abuse doesn't start with a theft. Starts with a story. For 10 years the story in my family was simple. Julia left and Travis stayed. I was the selfish one because I moved 3 hours away to build a career. Travis was the saint because he stayed in our hometown, living rent-free in our mother's basement, supposedly taking care of her. That was the trap. I call it the trap of normalized cruelty. It's when your family convinces you that your success is a form of abandonment, and the only way to earn your forgiveness is to pay for the people you left behind. I didn't add Travis to my account because I was naive. I added him because I was tired of apologizing for existing. I remember the day I did it. It was 4 years ago, right after the car accident that crushed my legs. I was lying in a hospital bed hopped up on painkillers, terrified I would lose my job. Travis stood at the foot of the bed, not asking if I was in pain, but complaining that his truck had broken down and he couldn't get Mom to her appointments. I can't carry everything alone, Julia, he had said, looking at my cast like it was an inconvenience to him. You have the fancy job. I have the burden. So I added him as an authorized user. Just for emergencies, I told myself. Just for gas and groceries for Mom. It felt like buying peace. I thought if I paid enough they would finally stop calling me the selfish sister. I didn't know then that you can't buy peace from people who profit from your war. Over the years, emergencies became a very loose term. An emergency was a bar tab on a Friday night. An emergency was a new gaming console because he was stressed. An emergency was the lease on a brand new truck that cost more than my first car. I saw the charges. I saw every single one. And I let them slide. I drove a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked bumper and squeaky brakes, while my brother drove a $60,000 pickup truck paid for by my overtime shifts. I lived in a rental with questionable plumbing to save money for Rebecca's surgery, while I paid the deposit on Travis's luxury condo because he couldn't pass the credit check. I told myself I was being a good sister. I told myself I was helping him get on his feet. But looking at that zero balance on my phone, the fog finally lifted. I wasn't helping him. I was paying rent for my place in the family. I was paying a monthly subscription fee to be tolerated. Travis didn't steal that money because he was desperate. He stole it because he believed it was already his. In his mind, my money was just compensation for his life choices. He thought I was an endless resource, a tap that would never run dry. But he forgot one critical detail. When you drain the account, you also cancel the subscription. He didn't just take the money. He took the only reason I had to play nice. I closed the banking app and opened my work laptop. The sad, guilty sister died the moment I saw that balance. The woman who replaced her didn't care about keeping the peace. She only cared about the audit. I pulled up the metadata. It was time to see exactly what my brother had been buying with my silence. I cracked my knuckles and logged into the forensic dashboard. For years I'd used these tools to track down cartel money launderers and corporate embezzlers. I never thought I'd be using them to hunt my own brother. I didn't just look at the bank app. I pulled the raw transaction metadata. The screen filled with lines of code, but to me it was a map. The money hadn't gone straight into Travis's personal checking account. That would have been too easy, too traceable. Instead, it had been routed through a series of digital hops designed to look like legitimate purchases. But Travis wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was just a guy who watched too many movies. I traced the routing number of the receiving account. It belonged to a shell company called Obsidian Ventures LLC. The name sounded familiar. I opened my work files and ran a search. A match popped up instantly. Obsidian Ventures was flagged in a federal database as a known money laundering front for an online gambling ring operating out of Eastern Europe. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just family theft. This wasn't just Travis taking money to buy a new truck or pay off a credit card. He had wired $185,000 directly into a federal crime syndicate. He had crossed the line from a civil dispute to a felony. Federal wire fraud. Money laundering. Conspiracy. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark kitchen. Travis thought he was smart. He probably thought routing the money through a business account would hide it. Instead, he had just handed me the nuclear codes. He wasn't just a thief anymore. He was a liability to the United States government. I kept digging. I needed more than just the money trail. I needed to know where he was right now. I pulled the GPS data from his linked device. The Find My history painted a damning picture. Yesterday afternoon when he told me he was taking Mom to the doctor, his phone was pinging off a cell tower next to the Lucky 7 casino on the state border. He hadn't been with Mom. He had been gambling away the last of his own money, probably getting desperate enough to finally pull the trigger on mine. Then I heard a soft noise behind me. I turned around. Rebecca was standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She looked small in her oversized pajamas, but her eyes were wide awake and terrifyingly clear. "Did he take it?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, steady. "Did Uncle Travis take my leg money?" I looked at my daughter. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her it was a mistake, a glitch, something I could fix with a phone call. But I was done lying to protect the people who hurt us. "Yes," I said. "He took it all." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just nodded, a dark understanding settling over her features that no 10-year-old should ever have to wear. "Then we take him down," she said. It wasn't a question. It was an order. And looking at her, I realized she was right. We weren't victims anymore. We were hunters. And the hunt was just beginning. I had the where and the how. Now I needed the why. Or rather, I needed the proof of intent. In a federal case, the difference between "my sister said I could borrow it" and "I conspired to commit wire fraud" is often just a text message. And Travis was sloppy with his digital footprint. I didn't need a warrant to see his communications. Years ago when I bought him his first iPhone so he could apply for jobs, I added him to my family sharing plan. He never left it. He probably forgot it existed. I opened the cloud dashboard and clicked on the message archives. He had deleted the thread with Nicole, his girlfriend, but he hadn't cleared the recently deleted folder. I hit restore. The conversation populated the screen, timestamped 2 hours ago. "Travis, it's done. The bitch finally paid up. Nicole, all of it. Travis, every cent. 185 grand. We're going to Cabo, baby. First class." I stared at the word bitch. That was what I was to him. Not a sister. Not a savior. Just a mark. A stupid, gullible mark who had finally paid out. He wasn't stealing to pay off a loan shark or save our mother's house. He was stealing to party. He was stealing because he felt he deserved a vacation on my dime. I took a screenshot. That was Exhibit A. Then I cross-referenced his location history. Yesterday afternoon when he texted me a sob story about spending 3 hours in the waiting room with Mom at the cardiologist, his GPS data told a different story. He wasn't at the hospital. He was at the Lucky 7 casino sitting in the same spot for 4 hours. The timestamp on his text asking for gas money matched a withdrawal at the casino ATM. He had gambled away his last $20, walked out to his truck and decided to rob me. It wasn't desperation. It was entitlement. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest, displacing the panic. I wasn't shaking anymore. I was organizing. I created a new folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. I dragged the bank logs, the shell company profile, the chat logs and the GPS map into it. Then I heard the floorboards creak. I spun around. Rebecca was standing there. She wasn't sleeping. She was holding her tablet, her face pale in the screen's light. She walked over to me, her eyes scanning the red text on my banking tab. "Is it gone?" she asked. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to tell her to go back to bed, that Mommy would fix it. But she was 10 years old, going on 30. She knew what that money meant. She knew it was the only reason we ate generic brand cereal and drove a car with a check engine light that never turned off. "Yes," I said. "He took the surgery money." She looked at the screen, then at the photo of Travis I had pulled up. She didn't cry. She didn't ask why he did it. She just looked at me with a fierce, terrifying clarity. "Then we take him down," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. She pulled a chair up next to me and sat down. "I can help," she said. "I know where he hides his passwords." I looked at my daughter and for the first time that night I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who just realized she wasn't fighting alone. "Hey," I said. "Let's get to work." I didn't call the police. Local cops take reports. They write down what happened and tell you to call your bank in the morning. They don't have the power to stop a wire transfer that's already halfway to an offshore shell company. But the United States Treasury does. I open my secure work portal. In my line of work, we have a direct line to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's called SR, a Suspicious Activity Report. Usually it takes days to process. But when you flag a transaction as terrorist financing or international money laundering, involving a known shell entity like Obsidian Ventures, the system doesn't wait for a human to drink their coffee. It reacts. I typed in the transaction ID. I flagged the recipient. And I hit submit. It was the financial equivalent of calling in an airstrike on my own bank account. Within minutes, the trap snapped shut. The banking system's automated defenses kicked in. They didn't just freeze the transfer. They locked down every account touching it. Travis's personal checking, his savings, even the shell account he was trying to feed, all of it turned to ice. He wasn't going to Cabo. He wasn't going anywhere. 10 minutes later my phone rang. The caller ID said Travis. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring twice, 3 times, letting his panic marinate. When I finally picked up, I didn't say hello. I just listened. "What did you do?" he screamed. The sound was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "What the hell did you do, Julia?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, pitching my voice up an octave. I channeled every ounce of the scared, submissive sister I used to be. "Travis, I woke up and the money was gone. I think I was hacked." "You liar," he roared. "I'm at the ATM. It ate my card. The app says federal freeze. You called the feds on me." "I didn't call anyone." I sobbed, forcing a tremor into my voice. "I'm scared, Travis. That was Rebecca's surgery money. If it's frozen, I can't get it back. You have to help me." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing hard, the gears in his desperate mind turning. He needed that money to pay off the people behind Obsidian Ventures. If he didn't deliver, he was a dead man. And right now, he thought I was just a confused, terrified woman who had accidentally tripped an alarm. "Listen to me," he hissed. "You need to fix this. You need to call the bank and tell them it was authorized. Tell them it was a mistake. Right now." "I don't know what to say to them," I stammered. "I need you here. Please, Travis. Come over. We can sign whatever papers they need. Just help me get the money back." "I'm coming," he said. "And you better not be playing games, Julia. Or I swear to God I'll burn that house down with you inside it." The line went dead. I lowered the phone. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. My face was dry. I looked at Rebecca, who was sitting at the kitchen table, watching me with wide, expectant eyes. "Is he coming?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "He's coming." I walked over to the front door and unlocked it. Then I turned off the porch light. I wanted him to think I was hiding. I wanted him to think he was walking into a house of victims. He didn't know he was walking into a federal honeypot. The SAR report wasn't just a freeze. It was a beacon. By the time Travis pulled into my driveway, he wouldn't just be dealing with an angry sister. He'd be dealing with the full weight of the U.S. government. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait for the wolf. They didn't knock. They attacked the door. The sound of Travis's fist hammering against the wood echoed through the house like gunshots. Outside, I could hear him screaming, his voice pitched high with a frantic, desperate rage. "Open the door, Julia. I know you're in there. Stop hiding and give me my money." He wasn't just talking to me. He was performing for the neighborhood. He was setting the narrative. I was the thief. I was the one holding his property hostage. It was the same tactic he'd used since we were kids. Scream loud enough and people will assume you're the victim just to get some quiet. I looked at Rebecca. She was standing in the hallway, clutching her tablet like a shield. She nodded once. I walked to the door, took a deep breath and disengaged the deadbolt. I swung it open. Travis stood on the porch, face flushed and sweating despite the cold. Nicole hovered behind him, no longer angry, just scared. Finally, Travis snapped as he shoved past me. "You think this is funny? Freezing my accounts." "I didn't freeze them," I said calmly, the same voice I used in court. He spun on me, finger shaking. "The ATM said federal freeze. You called the bank. Fix it. Tell them it was authorized." He truly believed he could bully his way out like he always had. I raced the file folder I'd been holding. "I can't call them," I said. "Because I didn't do it." I handed him the document. The suspicious activity report, Treasury seal stamped at the top. The United States Treasury froze it. He stared at the seal. The words "federal wire fraud detected" were enough. "When you moved $185,000 into a shell account," I said, "you triggered a federal wire. That money was tagged. The moment you transferred it, you didn't send funds. You sent a beacon to the FBI." Nicole whispered, "Bait money?" "Evidence," I said. Travis staggered back. "You set me up. You ratted on your own family." "You're not family," I said. "You're a liability." He tried one last time, claiming he did it for us, for Mom, for Rebecca. I stepped closer. You're not a hero, I said. You're a thief who stole from a disabled child. You're case number 49B. And you're done. Blue and red lights flooded the room. Nicole gasped. Outside, black SUVs blocked the driveway. Travis turned back to me, stripped of arrogance, pleading like a child. Julia, please. I can't help you, I said. You're unauthorized. The door burst open. Federal agents. Hands where we can see them. I watched the cuffs close around his wrists. I watched Nicole cut a deal before the engines even started. I watched my brother dragged out screaming my name. When the street finally went quiet, I locked the door. Rebecca stood in the hallway. Is he gone? Yes, I said. Good, she breathed. Now we can buy the surgery. He got 15 years. The money came back. Rebecca runs now, no pain, no limp. People ask if I feel guilty. I miss the brother I imagined. Not the man who stole from my child. Silence isn't lonely. It's peaceful. And sometimes protecting your future means amputating your past. Amputating